Hi, I'm Tony Messenger, Metro columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. This is a job that I often tell people is one of the greatest jobs in journalism. I started out as a kid reading columnists like Woody Page, the sports columnist for the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News when I was growing up. Or Rick Riley, who was the sports columnist for Sports Illustrated when I was a kid and grew up in my same Littleton hometown. When I went to college, I went to Loyola of Chicago and started reading Mike Royko, possibly the greatest Metro columnist of all time. And I started to think, that is a really cool job. That's the sort of job where you can make a difference. And that's what I love to do here at the Post-Dispatch. And I do so mostly because of you, the readers. One of the great things about my column is the connection that I have from readers to different elements of the community. Folks like you call me and write me and tell me about stories, and I go out and I write about them, and then those stories lead to other stories, and I connect different parts of our community. Many years ago, one of the first columns I wrote at the Post-Dispatch was about a woman named Kathy Acree. She had started a nonprofit making backpacks for the homeless, filling backpacks with wool gloves and hats and scarves and all sorts of needed material for people to stay alive on the streets and help connect them to housing and just all sorts of things that somebody who doesn't have a house needs to have with them and keep dry. And that nonprofit started really small in her basement, and then it grew and it grew, and I met her one day in a warehouse as they were filling backpacks and told a story about her nonprofit. A couple of years later, I wrote about one of the homeless people that I had met out on that day and who had been helped by Kathy's nonprofit, and his name was Eddie. And Eddie took me to his apartment that he had obtained on the south side, and he was so proud to have a roof over his head and to have his own coffee pot and his own TV and his own kitchen table, and he was just glorious in his castle in a tiny little apartment off of South Broadway. And it was great to be able to take that story and connect it to another story. And later I wrote about backpacks in a different context. Two women, Melissa Golder and Patricia Dees, started a nonprofit called the Lawrence Strawbridge Foundation. It had been inspired, unfortunately, by the death of a young man named Lawrence Strawbridge, who grew up in the city of St. Louis, but attended schools in Wildwood. He had been a student at Lafayette High School when he and his mother were tragically killed. And this nonprofit, the Lawrence Strawbridge Foundation, aimed to help people like Lawrence, in part by filling backpacks, making sure that they had the sorts of school supplies that a lot of children like my children, one of whom goes to Lafayette High School, take for granted. And those backpacks helped other kids get through high school. And now that organization, Lawrence Strawbridge Foundation, is helping some of those kids with college expenses, and they're filling trunks to help them take supplies to go to college. Another organization that at one point I introduced Kathy Acree to was the Criminal Justice Ministry. And I made that connection because the Criminal Justice Ministry also fills backpacks. They serve people coming out of prison who, unfortunately, sometimes also end up being homeless. And those backpacks are filled with items that people coming out of prison need to help them get a job, to help them get reintegrated into the community. All of these stories are connected, and they all led one to another. And every one of them started with a single connection that I had with a reader. In this case, it was Kathy Acree. And that one phone call that she made trying to get me to write about her organization led to several other columns. And since then, she's helped introduce me to many wonderful people who do the work day in, day out, trying to help the unhoused, people who unfortunately don't have a place of their own and often have to go from park to park or overpass to overpass or even tent encampments and to try to make it through the next day as they try to improve their lives and try to have a roof over their head. I'm honored to be able to tell these stories at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and what really helps me be able to tell them is your subscription, whether it's digitally or in print. You're spending money on this news product so that myself and my colleagues can continue to tell the stories that are important to St. Louisans. It helps these stories come to life. It helps the community know about what's happening, not just in their backyard, but all across the community. So I thank you. I thank you for reading. I thank you for subscribing. And I thank you for helping me connect to the stories that you think are important to be told in the city of St. Louis and throughout our entire St. Louis region. Thank you.